Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Agung Mursaling. I'm from PBIC class, and in this video, I would like to answer several questions related to discourse analysis. Okay, so without further ado, let me just start with question number one. Okay, so number one is, what is spoken discourse and what is the relationship between spoken discourse and discourse analysis? Okay, so my answer is that spoken discourse is the use of language in verbal communication through speech. It consists of a series of sounds, words, phrases, and sentences that are produced to convey meaning in real-time interaction. In simple terms, spoken discourse is how people actually speak and communicate in real-life situations. And spoken discourse is closely related to speaking, which is defined as an interactive process of constructing meaning involving producing, receiving, and processing information. And it is also influenced by context, participants, and purpose of communication. The relationship between spoken discourse and discourse analysis is very strong. Discourse analysis is used to analyze spoken discourse in order to understand how conversations are structured, what function utterances have, and what meanings are implied beyond the words. For example, discourse analysis can analyze turn taking, speech acts, and exchange structures like ERF, initiation, response, and feedback. So, spoken discourse is the object being studied, while discourse analysis is the tool used to analyze it. Okay, so question number two. What do you know of interactional, transactional, as well as performance speaking? So my answer is that in our daily life, people don't always speak for the same reason. So sometimes we speak just to connect with others, sometimes to exchange information, and sometimes to perform in front of an audience. So uh, uh, speaking can divide it into three types: interactional, transactional, and performance. So the first is interactional. So speaking is used to build and maintain social relationships. The main goal here is not really to give important information, but to create a comfortable and friendly atmosphere. For example, when two people meet and say, "Hi, how are you?" then continue talking about the weather or daily activities. In this kind of speaking, people often change topic quickly. So they use expressions like "really" or "oh, wow," and sometimes interrupt each other. So the focus is more on being social than being informative. And then the second is transactional speaking. So this speaking is different because it focuses on exchanging information clearly. So here, the speaker has a specific purpose like explaining something, asking for details, or solving a problem. For example, when someone asks for direction or discuss an assignment, they need to be clear so the message is understood. Compared to interactional speaking, this type is usually more structured and focused on meaning rather than relationship. And then the third is performance speaking. So this speaking refers to the speaking in front of an audience. So this includes activities like giving a speech, presentation, or lecture. In this case, the speaker usually prepares what they want to say in advance, and the language is more formal. The goal is to deliver information clearly to listeners, not to interact casually like in conversations. So the main difference between these three types lies in their purpose. The first is interactional is for social connection, transactional is for exchanging information, and performance is for delivering message to an audience. Okay, next question number three. What do you know of classroom conversation and casual conversations? What are the differences? Okay, so my answer is that classroom conversation is quite different from casual conversation. In the classroom, the interaction is more controlled by the teacher. For example, the teacher usually starts the conversation by asking questions, then the students answer, and finally the teacher gives feedback. This pattern is known as ERF, initiation, response, feedback. Also, students usually need permission to speak, like raising their hands. Meanwhile, in casual conversation outside the classroom, communication feels more natural and relaxed. People can speak freely without waiting for permission. The topics can change quickly, and there is no fixed structure like in the classroom. For example, two friends might start talking about the weather. then suddenly move to talking about shopping or personal experiences. So the main difference are uh, that classroom conversation is structured and controlled, casual conversation is spontaneous and flexible, and teacher usually dominates in the classroom, but equal participation happens in casual conversations. Okay, next question. Question number 4. To the best of your knowledge, what do language learners need to learn to be successful in real social interactions? Okay, so my answer is that from what I understand, language learners cannot rely only on grammar and vocabulary if they want to be successful in real social interactions. They need to learn both language form and language function, and more importantly, how to connect the two of them. So, language form includes things like grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and sentence structure. These are important because they help learners produce correct sentence. However, the however, uh, being grammatically correct does not guarantee successful communication. So, what learners often lack is language function, which means understanding the purpose behind what people say. In real life, people do not always speak in direct or literal way. Sometimes one sentence can have a different meaning depending on the situation. For example, when someone says, "You're taller than I am," it may not be used to compare height, but to refuse a request. Without understanding this function, learners can easily misunderstand or respond inappropriately. Besides that, learners also need to understand the context about who they are talking to, where and in what situation, social norms, formal versus informal, pragmatic meaning, what the speaker really intend to say. So many learners face difficulties because they are trained mostly in form, grammar, and vocabulary, but not in how to use language in real situations. So as a result, they may speak correctly but not naturally or appropriately. So to be successful in real communication, learners need to combine grammar and vocabulary with real life usage. So they have to understand when and how to say something, practice using language in real context. And in short, success in communication is not just about knowing English, but also using English effectively, naturally, and appropriately in real life situations. Okay, the last questions, question number 5. What are the advantages of discourse analysis and the scope of analyzing casual conversations? Okay, so my answer is that discourse analysis is very useful when we try to understand how casual conversation actually works in real life. Without discourse analysis, we might only see conversations as simple exchange of sentence, but with discourse analysis, we can understand the deeper structure and meaning behind them. One important advantage of discourse analysis is that it helps us see the structure of conversations. For example, conversations are not random, they follow certain patterns like initiation, response, and follow-up or feedback. And in casual conversations, the pattern can even be more complex, like when a response also becomes a new initiation. So by analyzing this, we can understand how conversations develop step by step. Another advantage is that discourse analysis helps identify language functions, so not just the forms. In real conversations, people often say things that mean more than their literal words. For example, someone might say something that looks like information, but actually functions as a refusal, invitation, or reaction. And discourse analysis helps us uncover these hidden meanings. And it also helps us understand natural communication features such as turn taking, how people take turns speaking, topic shifting, and how topic change. And then there's also agency pairs like question answer, greeting response, and there are things that usually happen automatically in real life, but learners may not notice them unless they are analyzed. Another advantage is for teaching and learning that discourse analysis can be used by teachers to design better teaching materials, create more natural conversation, like teaching methods. And for students, discourse analysis helps them improve their communicative competence meaning they can speak more naturally, appropriately, and effectively in real situations. So overall, the advantage of discourse analysis is that it helps us move beyond just understanding sentence and instead understand how real communication actually works in social life. Okay, maybe that's all from my answer. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.